The wedding invitation for my daughter's lavish ceremony arrived in the mailboxes. Of 200 esteemed guests, mine remained conspicuously, painfully empty. When I confronted her, her words didn't just feel like a rejection. They felt like a blade twisting in the legacy her mother and I had built. "Dad," she said, her voice a chilling mix of pity and contempt, "it's a black tie affair for a certain caliber of people. You simply wouldn't fit in." I accepted her decision with a quiet nod, but on the day she pledged her forever, I didn't watch from the sidelines. I descended from the sky in a thunderous roar of rotor blades, ready to unveil the monumental truth she had so carelessly dismissed. The silence in my study was a physical presence, a dense fog of memories and dust motes dancing in the slanted afternoon sun. It was in this room that Clara, my wife, her spirit still vivid in the worn leather of the armchair and the scent of old books, had once dreamed with me. We had mapped out empires on the backs of napkins and whispered promises of a future filled with success and family. Now, the silence was a testament to her absence, a hollowed-out space where her laughter used to reside. The phone's shrill ring was an intrusion, a jagged tear in the quiet. I let it ring, watching the old rotary dial tremble with each burst. On the fifth ring, a sense of duty, or perhaps the ghost of a habit, made me pick up. "Dad?" It was Sarah. Her voice was a cascade of forced energy, like champagne bubbles that fizzled too quickly. "You're never going to believe it. Mark proposed last night. On the yacht. It was so perfect. We're getting married." The words "getting married" should have been a symphony. They should have filled the hollowed spaces with light and warmth. Instead, they landed with a dull thud. Underneath the performative glee was a current of something else, something strained and rehearsed, as if she had practiced this call in the mirror. "That's wonderful news, sweetheart. I'm so happy for you." I aimed for paternal warmth, but my voice sounded thin and distant, even to my own ears. "I know, it's just so incredible. We have to celebrate. Can you meet us for lunch? There's this amazing new place, the Grand Mariner, down on the waterfront. Can you be there by 1? Us. The word landed with the weight of a stone. Not Mark, not the man who will be my son-in-law, U.S. It was a declaration of a new alliance, a unit from which I was already being subtly excluded. "Of course," I said, the words tasting like ash. "I'll see you then." The line went dead and the silence rushed back in, louder and more profound than before. 2 hours later, I guided my 10-year-old sedan, a vehicle chosen for its anonymity and reliability, into the valet lane of the Grand Mariner. The place was a monument to new money and ostentatious display, all gleaming chrome and floor-to-ceiling glass reflecting the harbor's sparkle. A line of Porsches, Ferraris, and a matte black Lamborghini idled like impatient predators. I waved the young valet away, earning a look of mild confusion, and parked my humble car self-consciously in a distant corner. Walking towards the entrance felt like crossing a border into a foreign country. Through the vast glass walls, I saw them. Sarah was radiant, her face animated in a way I hadn't seen since before Clara's illness had cast its long shadow. She was leaning across a table, her hand resting on the arm of a man in a suit so impeccably tailored it seemed to defy wrinkles. Mark, his posture was one of relaxed ownership, as if the entire restaurant, the view, the very air, were his to command. He turned as I approached. His eyes, a cool, assessing blue, didn't just see me. They processed me. They flickered from my off-the-rack trousers to my slightly faded jacket, down to my sensible, polished but worn shoes. The entire scan took no more than 3 seconds, concluding with a micro-expression I knew all too well from my business days: polite, professional dismissal. "Mr. Evans," he said, rising with a fluid, practiced grace. His handshake was a brief, firm compression, a transaction of pressure, not a greeting. "Sarah talks about you constantly. I see you're a man who appreciates the classics." He gestured vaguely towards the parking lot. The word classics was delivered with a surgeon's precision, a polite synonym for obsolete. Sarah's smile was tight, her eyes darting between Mark's face and mine, seeking a reflection of his approval. Isn't this place amazing, Dad? She gushed, her voice a little too high. Mark knows the owner. I slid into the plush booth, the leather groaning softly beneath me. It's certainly impressive. So, Mark, I began, folding my hands on the table. Sarah tells me you're in finance. Private equity. Sir? He corrected smoothly, a faint, condescending smile playing on his lips. We specialize in leveraged buyouts and corporate restructuring. It's about identifying potential and applying the right pressure to maximize returns. He glanced at his watch. A sliver of platinum that probably cost more than my car. A casual yet deliberate reminder that his time was a valuable commodity. It keeps me rather occupied. Sarah jumped in, her words tumbling out in a rehearsed torrent. That's why we're thinking a September wedding. I know it's soon, but Mark's schedule is just insane, and we managed to secure this very venue. Can you believe it? It's the exact kind of elegant, sophisticated day that Mom would have loved for me. The mention of Clara was a physical blow, a sucker punch to the soul. I saw her then, not as the frail woman cancer had taken, but as the vibrant, laughing partner who had stood by my side, when this entire empire was just a crazy dream. She had valued character over currency, integrity over income. To hear her memory invoked to justify this performance was a profound desecration. We're set on the Grand Mariner, Sarah continued, her gaze flicking to Mark for validation. The panoramic ocean views are unmatched. It's the premier venue in the city. I knew the Grand Mariner. I knew the weight of the silverware, the vintage of the wine cellar, the name of the chef we had poached from. Paris, I knew it because Clara, and I had built it from the ground up. But I said nothing. The game, it seemed, was still in play. Mark leaned back, his attention shifting to the seared scallops placed before him. He dissected them with surgical precision. A wedding of this standard is a significant capital outlay, he stated, as if reading from a prospectus. The venue fee alone is substantial. Then you have top-tier catering, a live orchestra, floral installations from Holland. You're looking at a baseline of $80,000, perhaps $90,000 for an event that doesn't embarrass anyone. He took a sip of mineral water. Of course, tradition dictates the bride's family handles these costs. It's an investment in the family's future social capital. The statement hung in the air, thick and suffocating. It wasn't a request. It was an assessment of my ability to pay a toll for my daughter's happiness. Sarah refused to meet my eyes. Her hand found Mark's arm again, a gesture that now looked less like affection and more like clinging to a life raft. A waiter materialized to refill our glasses. Mark's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at the screen, his lips tightening. You'll have to excuse me, he said, standing. Hong Kong calls. He pressed a dry kiss to Sarah's temple. Don't settle for the sea bass without me. The moment he was gone, the performance faltered. Sarah's shoulders slumped a fraction of an inch. She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw past the bridal glow to the raw, unsettling emotion beneath, shame. It wasn't directed at Mark or the situation, but squarely, devastatingly at me. Dad, she began, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I know the numbers he's talking about are astronomical. We don't expect you to cover all of it. But if you could make a meaningful contribution, it would show Mark's family that you support our vision. I am happy for you, Sarah, I said, my voice low and steady. Your mother spent years dreaming of the day you would find someone to build a life with. She would be overjoyed. For a fleeting second, her face softened, the ghost of my little girl shining through. But then her eyes dropped. They fell upon my hands, resting on the table. They were the hands of a working man, calloused and lined, a testament to a life of physical labor in my youth, before the fortunes turned. I saw her trace the scars and wrinkles, and the softness in her face vanished, replaced by a faint grimace of embarrassment. Whatever you need for this wedding, I heard myself say. The words feeling alien, I will provide. You deserve the perfect day. The relief that washed over her was palpable, a tangible force in the space between us. Thank you, Dad. Oh, thank you. Her gratitude was effusive but hollow, like the sound of a drum beaten for an audience of one. It was the sound of a box being checked. Mark returned, placing his phone face up on the table. A stream of financial tickers glowed on the screen, a silent, flashing billboard of his importance. "All sorted," he announced, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "So, Mr. Evans, Sarah tells me you're retired. What was it you used to do?" Used to do, past tense. As if my life's work were a closed chapter, a footnote in a story he was now writing. "I worked in hospitality," I said, the understatement of the century tasting bitter on my tongue. The lunch concluded with a flurry of empty pleasantries and firm handshakes. I walked back to my car, a solitary figure in the vast parking lot, while they slid seamlessly into the low-slung Porsche. Sarah offered a small, almost apologetic wave through the smoke-colored window. I lifted my hand in return, a marionette moving on a string. The drive home was a tunnel of blurring scenery and roaring thoughts. The sickening feeling in my gut, the one that had started as a tiny seed during the phone call, had now blossomed into a full-grown weed of dread, its roots wrapping around my heart. My only child, the living legacy of the woman I had loved beyond reason, was ashamed of me. 2 days later, a Tuesday, her sporty little coupe nosed into my driveway. I watched from the living room window as she sat behind the wheel for a full minute, her eyes performing a slow, critical inventory of my chosen habitat. She took in the peeling paint on the porch rails, the defiant weeds sprouting through cracks in the pavement, the slightly lopsided mailbox. Each detail was a piece of evidence, corroborating her theory of my diminished existence. She finally emerged, smoothing the front of her expensive linen dress, a tiny rehearsal of nonchalance. "Dad," she said as I opened the door. Her hug was a brief, airy gesture, careful not to wrinkle her clothes. "The hydrangeas are trying so hard this year," she offered, her gaze sweeping over the wild, untamed bush. The lie was so transparent it was almost painful. The hydrangeas were a tangled mess, choked by morning glory. We both knew it. I led her to the kitchen, the heart of this modest, deliberately unassuming home. Her eyes were like cameras, clicking away, documenting the outdated avocado green stove, the linoleum floor with its faint pattern worn away by decades of footsteps, the simple wooden table where Clara and I had shared countless meals. She settled into a chair, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee. "I wanted to go over the wedding details with you," she began, her tone carefully measured. "It's all confirmed. The Grand Mariner. It's exclusive, but it sets the right tone for Mark's circle." I remained silent, letting her talk. "His partners, his clients from the firm, they're all coming. It's crucial that everything is impeccable, flawless." She pulled out her phone, her thumb swiping through a gallery of excess, towering floral arches, a 12-piece swing band, a menu featuring white truffles and Kobe beef. "So," she said, setting the phone down and finally meeting my eyes, "how much can you contribute?" I held her gaze. "What is the required amount, Sarah?" She didn't flinch. $75,000. "I know it's a lot. If it's too much, we'll understand. Mark's parents are giving us 50, and it would mean everything to me if you could match that." For Mom to honor her memory, she wielded Clara's name like a master strategist, aiming for the one place she knew my armor was weak. And it worked, though not in the way she intended. It didn't open my wallet. It opened my eyes to the depth of her manipulation. I reached for a small, spiral-bound notepad, a prop in this tragicomedy. I pretended to jot down numbers, my brow furrowed in the semblance of difficult calculation. Sarah watched me, her expression a volatile cocktail of hope, impatience, and pity. Her phone buzzed on the table once, twice, 3 times. Messages from Mark, no doubt, asking for a status report. I set the pen down. "Consider it done?" Her head snapped up. "What?" "The money will be in your account tomorrow. Your mother..." "She started a savings fund for your wedding the day you were born. She wanted you to have this." Confusion warred with avarice on her face. Where would a retired man, living in this house, find $75,000? The question was a fleeting shadow, quickly banished by the blinding light of acquisition. She stood up so quickly her chair scraped against the floor. She came around the table and hugged me, a tighter, more physical embrace than before. Thank you, Dad. You have no idea what this means to us. But her voice lacked the warmth of true gratitude. It was the excited, transactional tone of someone who had just won a bet they weren't sure they could cover. I walked her to the door, accepting another brittle hug. I watched her car disappear down the street, then turned and went straight to the small, Spartan bedroom I used as a home office. The computer whirred to life. I logged into my primary banking portal, the one she knew about, the one that held a carefully curated balance of just under $80,000. Believable life savings for a man of my apparent means. With a few clicks, I initiated a transfer of $75,000 to her account. Then I navigated away. With another password, I accessed a different world. Account after account blossomed on the screen, a dizzying constellation of wealth. Holdings, trusts, investment portfolios, the liquid proceeds from the silent sale of 2 of our hotel chains the previous year. The numbers glowed, a silent testament to the empire Clara and I had built, Warren Holdings. The Grand Mariner was just the tip of the spear, the public face of a fortune so vast it had become abstract. $180 million. And my daughter was ashamed of my worn jacket. That evening, I took my usual spot on the back porch, a glass of water in my hand, Clara's favorite photograph cradled in the other. It was from the opening day of the Grand Mariner. We were so young, so filled with fire and hope, standing before the gleaming doors, oversized scissors poised to cut the red ribbon. Behind us, our dream made manifest. Clara had insisted we raise Sarah away from the distorting lens of extreme wealth. Let her learn the value of things, not just their price, she'd say. After she died, I took that philosophy to its extreme. I moved into this small house, adopted this simple life, a 3-year experiment in authenticity. I wanted to see who would remain in my life when the glittering facade was gone. Sarah had passed every test, until the intoxicating lure of status had proven stronger than the bonds of blood. The sound of a car door shutting, then voices, pulled me from my thoughts. I moved silently through the dim house to the front window. Sarah was on the porch, her back to me, phone pressed to her ear. She thought I was still out back. He said yes, the full 75. Transferred it just like that, a pause. I could almost hear Mark's smug, tinny response through the receiver. Then Sarah laughed a sharp, ugly, dismissive sound that I didn't recognize as my daughter's. I know, right? That's probably every penny he has left in the world. God, I hope he doesn't expect to walk me down the aisle now. Or make a speech. Mark, your managing director is going to be there. We can't have him stumbling over his words in that sad, outdated suit he calls a jacket. She paused, listening, then her voice dropped, but I caught the final, chilling directive. We'll seat him at that small table in the back, near the kitchen. He'll never even be seen. We'll figure it out. I stood frozen in the shadows, the photograph of Clara feeling like a block of ice in my hand. The Grand Mariner. She had chosen the temple of my life's work, the monument to her mother's spirit for her wedding, and she was planning to hide me in the back like a shameful secret. The irony was so profound it was physically painful, a burning acid in my veins. I would attend this wedding. I would be seen. The days that followed were an exercise in suspended animation. The mailbox remained a hollow, taunting mouth. My neighbors, the Johnsons, received their thick, cream-colored invitation. I saw Mrs. Johnson showing it off at the community mailboxes. Such a beautiful couple. And the Grand Mariner. Sarah must be marrying a prince. My mailbox yielded only bills and flyers. I called Sarah, keeping my voice light, paternal. Sweetheart, just checking in. The mail has been a bit unreliable lately. I haven't seen my invitation yet. Oh, Dad. Her voice was a masterpiece of fabricated stress. Don't even get me started. The calligrapher is having a complete meltdown over the gold leaf. With 200 guests, it's a nightmare. I promise I will hand-deliver yours myself. This weekend? Cross my heart. 200 guests. But not me. Not yet. The following morning, at the local diner where I went for my daily coffee and to maintain my cover, My neighbor Brenda bustled over, her face alight with excitement. James, congratulations! Sarah's wedding at the Grand Mariner. You must be bursting. I am, I said, my smile feeling like a crack in plaster. Your daughter is a miracle worker. Getting a Saturday in September there is impossible. You must have called in a favor, she winked, then pulled out her phone. Look, isn't it stunning? She thrust the screen towards me. The digital invitation was a masterpiece of design. Sarah and Mark in elegant, swirling script. The date, the time, and there, at the bottom, the venue, the Grand Mariner. Emblazoned next to it was the logo, the one I had sketched on a napkin while sitting next to Clara in a hospital room, a symbol of our hope for a future beyond her illness. When did you get this? I asked, my voice remarkably steady. Oh, days ago. By email. Everyone's talking about it. It's the social event of the season. I drove home, but I didn't go inside. I drove past the Grand Mariner. I parked across the street and watched. I saw the staff setting up for the evening service, moving with the polished efficiency I had instilled. I saw the valets parking cars worth more than most houses. I saw my legacy, my creation, being prepared for the celebration of my daughter's union, a union from which I was expressly barred. That night I sat in the deepening gloom of my living room. I didn't turn on the lights. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out a thick, worn folder. Sarah, inside, was a ledger of a father's love, measured in dollars and cents out of necessity, but representing so much more. Receipts for her university tuition, $250,000. The bill of sale for her first car. Bank statements showing the transfers for her apartment deposits, her study abroad, the loans that were never meant to be repaid. Added up, it came to nearly $500,000 over the years. She had accepted every cent. Now she was unwilling to accept my presence. I picked up my phone. The charade was over. Sarah, my voice was flat, devoid of its usual warmth. I need a direct answer. Am I invited to your wedding? The silence on the other end was profound, broken only by the faint sound of her breathing and Mark's muffled voice in the background. Dad? Her voice, when it came, was different. The fake cheer was gone, stripped away, revealing the cold, calculating steel beneath. This isn't a backyard barbecue. This is a black tie event. Mark's partners, his clients, they're Fortune 500 old money families. Someone of your financial standing would feel completely out of place. It's not a reflection on you. It's about the environment. Let me be perfectly clear, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Are you telling me I'm not invited to my only daughter's wedding because you believe I am poor? It's more complex than that. She snapped, her composure cracking. You're a wonderful father. You've given me everything you could. But this wedding is a strategic move for Mark's career. It's about optics. Perception is reality in his world. Surely you, of all people with your business experience, understand that? She took a breath, her tone turning patronizing. And honestly, Dad, you'd be miserable. These people talk about their vineyards in Tuscany and their art collections. What would you talk about? Your retirement? Your little house? We're sparing you the discomfort. This is for you as much as for us. The words were so rehearsed, so utterly devoid of genuine feeling, that they barely registered as human speech. They were corporate talking points designed to manage a problem. I understand perfectly, I said, my voice now a whisper. Thank you for your honesty, Sarah. Enjoy your elite wedding. Your mother would be so proud of the woman you've become. I ended the call. The pain was a living thing, a wild animal clawing at my insides. But beneath the searing hurt, something else was born, a cold, diamond-hard resolve. The humble father was gone. In his place stood James Warren, the architect of an empire. She wanted an elite event at an exclusive venue. She would get one. She just had no idea who was really hosting it. The next 72 hours were a whirlwind of quiet, precise activity. I placed a call to my attorney, Robert Chun, who had handled my affairs for 20 years. Robert, I need a helicopter, Saturday, 4:15 p.m., landing at the Grand Mariner. James, what's this about? I'm attending my daughter's wedding. A pause. I thought, so did I make the arrangements? And I need you there as a witness. Next, I visited the Grand Mariner. I entered through the service entrance. The scent of baking bread and reducing sauces a familiar comfort. Stephen Murphy, my general manager, nearly dropped his clipboard when he saw me. Mr. Warren. Sir, we weren't expecting you. We need to talk, Stephen. In your office. I laid out the entire sordid tale. His face cycled through shock, disbelief, and finally, a simmering anger. She's been emailing me for months, he said, pulling up the contract. She and her fiancés. He tried to negotiate a discount for potential future business. I told him our prices were firm. He looked up at me. What do you need me to do, sir? On Saturday at 4:30, a helicopter will land on the North Pad. That will be me. Ensure the area is clear. And when I walk in, if anyone questions my presence, you will confirm my identity. It would be my absolute pleasure, Mr. Warren. The day of the wedding arrived. I dressed not in the simple clothes of James Evans, retiree, but in the uniform of James Warren, CEO, a custom-tailored Tom Ford tuxedo, a crisp white shirt, and platinum cufflinks that had been my father's. Looking in the mirror, I didn't see a struggling old man. I saw the man Clara had married. I saw the man who had built an empire. The helicopter ride was smooth, the thrum of the rotors a calming mantra. The headset crackled. Approaching the Grand Mariner now, Mr. Warren. Below, the city gave way to the coastline, and there it was. My restaurant. The oceanfront terrace was a swirling mass of color and movement, a living painting of wealth and privilege. I could just make out the figure in white, my daughter, at the center of it all. Circle once, please, I instructed the pilot. I wanted the spectacle. I wanted every single one of them to look up. The helicopter banked, and I watched as, one by one, the faces on the terrace turned upward. Hands shielded eyes from the sun. Champagne flutes paused mid-sip. Dozens of phones were raised, their tiny lenses capturing the unexpected aerial drama. We completed the arc and began our descent. The landing pad, which I had fought the city council to approve, was perfectly clear. The Robinson R-44 touched down with a gentle bump at precisely 4:30 p.m. The engine whine faded. I opened the door and stepped out. The rotor wash whipped at my jacket, but I stood firm. I began to walk, my pace measured, deliberate, allowing the crowd to take in the full picture. Then I saw her. Sarah, a vision in white, her face a frozen mask of horror. Mark stood beside her, his tuxedo suddenly looking like a costume. They broke into a run towards me. "Dad!" Sarah shrieked, her voice cutting through the wind. "What are you doing? What is this? Where did you get that tuxedo? That helicopter? Did you rent it? Did you bankrupt yourself? Are you trying to humiliate me on my wedding day?" I didn't answer. I simply looked past her, my gaze fixed on the entrance. I walked on. "Mr. Evans, this is highly inappropriate," Mark hissed, trying to step in front of me, his eyes darting nervously towards his guests. I sidestepped him without breaking stride. The crowd, sensing a drama far more compelling than any wedding ceremony, parted before me. Stephen Murphy stood at the door, holding it open. His face was a neutral mask, but he gave me the slightest of nods as I passed. I led the bizarre procession, the silent man in the impeccable tux, the hysterical bride, the frantic groom, and a trailing river of bewildered guests through the main dining room. I didn't stop until I reached the far wall. There it was, the 4-foot-wide, professionally lit photograph. Clara and I, young and triumphant, holding the giant scissors, the red ribbon fluttering down between us. The brass plaque gleamed, the Grand Mariner, founded by James and Clara Warren. I turned to face the room. The silence was so complete I could hear the ice melting in a glass. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice resonating with a calm authority that filled the space. "For those who don't know, this is my late wife, Clara. This photograph was taken 15 years ago, on the day we opened this restaurant." I paused, letting my gaze sweep over the stunned faces, finally landing on Sarah and Mark. "My name is James Warren." I am the owner of the Grand Mariner and of the Warren Holdings Group. My daughter is getting married here today. At a venue she explicitly told me I was too poor to attend. The silence held for a heartbeat longer, and then it shattered. It wasn't the sound of voices, but the sound of technology. A collective, frantic tapping as 200 people began Googling. James Warren, Warren Holdings, the Grand Mariner owner. Stephen Murphy stepped forward. "It's true," he announced, his voice ringing with clarity. "Mr. Warren is the sole owner. I have reported directly to him for the past 8 years." A woman near the back, one of Mark's important clients, spoke first, reading from her phone in a tone of awe. Warren Holdings' portfolio includes 12 luxury hotels, 3 Michelin-starred restaurants. Estimated net worth, $180 million. The number rippled through the crowd, a seismic wave of shock and recalculated social standings. Mark's face was a ghastly shade of gray. His boss, a stern-faced man I recognized, was staring at his own phone, his jaw clenched. He looked from the screen to Mark, his expression one of pure, unadulterated disgust. Sarah was weeping, but these were not tears of remorse. They were tears of shattered vanity and public ruin. "Daddy, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I didn't know," she sobbed, reaching for me. I took a step back, evading her touch. "You never asked. Sarah, you were so busy being ashamed of what you thought I was. You never bothered to learn who I am." I looked at her, at the beautiful, broken spectacle she had become. "Your mother and I built this from nothing." She valued integrity, humility, and love. She would be devastated to see what you have chosen to value instead. With that, I turned. I walked back through the silent, staring crowd, out the door, and across the terrace to the waiting helicopter. I did not look back. As we lifted into the sky, I looked down one last time. The perfect wedding was in ruins, not because of a lack of money, but because of an abundance of shame. The truth now unleashed was their problem to manage. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Mark was reassigned to a back-office role at his firm, his client-facing career finished. The story became a viral scandal, a cautionary tale about hubris and the perils of judging a book by its cover. Sarah's calls and texts piled up, a mountain of desperate apologies that focused on her mistake in misjudging my wealth, not the fundamental flaw in her character. It was only when they showed up on my doorstep, truly broken, having lost their lavish apartment and their social standing, that I finally opened the door. They weren't the proud, shiny couple anymore. They were just 2 humbled people facing the consequences of their own choices. Forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. I didn't offer them a handout. I offered them a hand up with conditions. Mark now works in the logistics department of my company, learning the meaning of real work. Sarah volunteers full-time at the Clara Warren Foundation, which supports families in crisis. She is finally learning through serving others what her mother tried to teach her all along, that a person's worth is measured by the content of their character, never the contents of their bank account. We have a long way to go. The trust that was shattered may never be fully restored, but sometimes on a quiet evening they come over to my modest house. We sit on the porch and we talk, not about money or status, but about Clara, about forgiveness, and about the slow, painful, but necessary work of building a life based on what truly matters. I didn't reveal my secret to destroy my daughter. I did it to save her from the person she was becoming. And in doing so, I finally honored the last, unspoken wish of the woman we both loved, to find our way back to each other, no matter how far we had strayed,